In today's video, we have the latest NHL trade talk. Today, we're focusing on the Ottawa Senators, the Vancouver Canucks, as well as the Pittsburgh Penguins. We have news out of Toronto regarding one of their prospects, Minten. Lots of injury updates as well, including a couple of big, devastating injuries for the Sens last night with Thomas Chabot and Jerard Brannstrom. An update on Connor McDavid. Will he be able to play in the upcoming Heritage Classic? All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a ton of news to talk about here today. First up, I want to go over some injuries and stuff, but we do have word out of Toronto that prospect Minten has been reassigned back to the WHL. He's going to be heading back to Kamloops. Obviously, get a small sample size of NHL action. Certainly looked good in the preseason. Had a few good games and kind of tailed off a bit, and certainly Sheldon Keefe felt the need to change the lineup and looked like they were getting, I guess better lineups, better looks with him being scratched. He's been a healthy scratch. I think it was 3 or 4 games in a row. So it makes sense. He's in line for a big season. Obviously can possibly go to World Juniors and possibly Memorial Cup and all that. So there's lots for him to develop and grow this year in junior. So certainly makes a lot of sense for him personally. That little bit of a taste of the NHL will be good for him down the road as well. So that decision's been made. We kind of assumed that was likely coming here soon. In Carolina, they are finally ready to have the season debut of Andrei Svechnikov, who, of course, missed the last part of, a big chunk of last year with a serious injury and was still not quite ready to play yet when the season started. So obviously the Canes have not had a great start to the season. They had a little bit of a bad road trip, which really kind of killed their record. And they're not totally sunk here by any means. It's early, and they're within striking distance for sure. But getting a guy like Svechnikov back in the lineup, who's well suited to put the puck in the net, will be a big jump and big addition to their lineup. So Svechnikov ready to return here for Carolina. Connor McDavid in Edmonton is not completely ruled out of playing in the Heritage Classic. I know Coach Jay Woodcroft did say that he yesterday skated and had a good day. We don't know if that's good enough to play or where things stand. They originally estimated at least 1 week, possibly 2. It would be about a week by the time we get to the Heritage Classic from the time that the injury happened. So we don't know for sure. It's not ruled out yet. So we'll see. I know the Oilers, again, had another poor outing last night against the New York Rangers, and this season is starting to get off the rails quick. Obviously, getting him back in the lineup would be a huge help for them. Last night, the Maple Leafs lost defenseman Jake McCabe very early in the game. I think he only played 1 shift against the Dallas Stars, so not quite sure if he's going to be out longer term or what his situation is, but certainly one to watch for Toronto. They may be dealing with a situation there. I know they called up William Lagesson today, as well as assigning Minten to junior, so that tells me that he's likely going to miss some time, but how much we don't know. Boston Bruins forward Milan Lucic is going to be out for a couple of weeks by the looks of things. He suffered a lower body injury after blocking a shot, so he's going to be out for a while. So the Bruins will carry on without him. Obviously, they've had a fantastic start to the season. Canucks forward Teddy Bluger, who obviously came over in the offseason, is progressing and will soon be able to make his season debut, which he has not been able to do just yet. So that'll be a welcome addition to the bottom 6 for Vancouver once that's able to happen. Doesn't mean it's going to be like in the next game. It could be a little bit, but he's getting closer and made good progress, which is certainly optimistic. And another situation just to keep an eye on, Flames defenseman Chris Tanev apparently hurt a shoulder in practice today. Don't know if it's going to lead to any missed time or not, but something to watch. And we saw a couple of bad injuries for the Sens last night. One we didn't even really know about until just a little while ago when it was announced by the head coach, but one was very obvious after a scary situation last night. We saw Jerard Brannstrom get hit hard into the boards by Cal Clutterbuck, and unfortunately he went hard into the boards and then came down and looked like his head did hit the ice. I'm pretty sure it's fair to say that he was knocked out. Based on the reaction of his teammates, I know he wasn't moving on the ice, and they were signaling immediately for help. So that was scary. The whole arena went quiet. The whole Sens and Islanders team were on the ice on one knee, kind of watching and seeing, and he ended up being taken off on the stretcher. We knew he was alert when he finally got off, which was good. He spent overnight in hospital evaluation. DJ Smith confirmed today that he has been diagnosed with a concussion, but a lot of the other tests and everything that they put him through were positive. which is good. So he's on his way back to Ottawa now. Of course, the Sens do have another game on this road trip. They go to Pittsburgh, which they're there now to play the Penguins for tomorrow. Obviously, he won't be in that game. It's difficult to pinpoint a timeline for Brannstrom, given what happened and given concussions are really tough to predict. It could be a week, it could be 2, it could be a month. You just don't know with concussion. So it's just a very scary situation, and the fact that he was laying there, which looked kind of helpless for a bit, it was emotional for the players for sure. So nice to see that there's at least some positives, but now he can start the recovery process, and we'll have to wait and see how long, because don't know. And Thomas Chabot, he's going to be out too. This is going to be an LTIR situation. He's going to be out for about 6 weeks. He ended up blocking a shot and fracturing his hand. It happened late in the second period. At first, he wasn't sure. He had a scan last night, showed that there wasn't anything broken. So, they were optimistic that he'd be okay. But then this morning, went for morning skate, and he couldn't even grip a stick. So they had another scan on this time. They had an MRI, and it revealed the fracture. So thankfully, the way the fracture is, he won't need surgery. It just needs to have some time to heal. So he's looking at about at least 4 weeks, but most likely 6. So because of that, he can go on LTIR. Otherwise, the Sens would be completely screwed to be able to call anybody up. But fact is, where he's going to be out for 28 days or more, that he can go on LTIR, put his $8 million, and then that will actually allow them to go with they should be able to go if they want with a 23-man roster. They've been going with like 20 because they just had no space. But they need to call up 2 defensemen, ideally for Brannstrom and Chabot. So I suspect you're probably going to see Tyler Kleven and maybe Gannett. Gannett was the last defenseman cut in training camp. They already have Jacob Bernard-Docker up, so I suspect those will be your guys that come up, and if they want to bring up a forward, they can. They may not do that for the next game in Pittsburgh because they have 4 days off and they head home after that, so they don't need a forward for the Pittsburgh game right now. So they might as well just play with those 12, and then when they get home, and if they want to, even if they don't need to change the lineup per se, they can bring somebody up just to have an extra forward on hand, which is the preferred thing to do. I don't know if they bring Zach McEwen back up or they go with a different body who's going to provide something different there. And we'll see. We are going to talk a little bit more about the Sens here as well, because it's been a busy Sens news cycle. Of course, yesterday we got the news about Shane Pinto and a 41-game suspension for violating league gambling policies, which, again, we still don't know the full story there. We probably won't completely. Basically, it sounds like there's some sort of third party involved that, like what they call like a proxy bet. He was either letting somebody use his account or he was funding others to bet. I don't know. We don't know. And there's no point in speculating too much because I have no way to verify if a theory is right or not. We're probably not going to know. The fact is that he violated a policy. It was considered a serious, egregious thing by the league, and this is where we're at. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. He won't be able to play until at the earliest January. I think it's the 21st against Philadelphia. The belief is that Shane Pinto is not going to sign a contract until around the time that his suspension is over. There's no benefit. I mean, if obviously he wouldn't be paid anyways, because obviously when you're suspended, all your pay is forfeited. So he's not going to get paid regardless. Because of the nature of the suspension and being off ice, he is able to start serving that from game 1 of the season. So that obviously already served a bunch of games. So there's no advantage. There's absolutely nothing here to get him signed. So they will wait. I suspect he's going to sign somewhere around league minimum for 1 year, and then they'll reevaluate in the offseason for a new deal moving forward. That's likely what we're going to see. So for people thinking that, Chabot's going on LTIR, they can sign Pinto. Well, theoretically they could, but it just doesn't make any sense to do it. And you know that Chabot's going to be back before Pinto can play. So, again, it's just going to complicate your cap situation more. So, again, there's no advantage. At some point, they're going to make a move, and they're going to create some cap flexibility here if they need to, unless they run into any other long-term injuries. They don't ideally want to be working in LTIR all season if they can help it. But the belief is that at some point, we're going to see something significant change with this roster. Now, for example, if they go into Pittsburgh and they lose another game and they head home on a 4-day break 3 and 5, I would suspect there's a really high probability, based on what I had heard from multiple sources and based on what's been out there. I think there's a high chance that Pierre Dorion and or both, maybe Dorion for sure, but a good chance that he and DJ Smith could both be let go. If they're going to make a move, if the ownership and Steve Staios see an issue here, and they should, because of the way this team has gone. They had a great start and then went off the rails quickly. It's a good time to do it with 4 days off. So, and they're heading to Sweden soon. Like if they're going to do something, it has to come quick. So I really think Pierre and DJ are very, very much on the hot seat. And this next game could be their jobs on the line. Maybe it doesn't make a difference. If they win Pittsburgh tomorrow, I don't know that it's a for sure that they keep their jobs. But there's lots of speculation going around that they are very close to being let go. So we will have to follow that scenario. There's also lots of word that, irregardless of fitting Pinto into the cap, that we're likely going to see a trade made soon, and that's probably going to come from the next general manager, not Dorion. I would suspect if they make it, because unless Dorion tries to pull off a trade to save his job and to improve this team in the short term, if they don't make a move as quickly as I think they might. But Dominik Kubalik has become the ideal trading candidate. He's at this point 7 games into his career with the Sens, and he's done nothing. They've tried him on multiple lines. He's not clicking with his line mates. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying he just isn't a fit in Ottawa. And he's a pending UFA, making $2.5 million. I don't see them bringing him back next year. That's the ideal. But you have a guy like Joseph, who's been working his tail off. He's good on the PK. That speed is really helpful and good on the third line. I don't really think you want to move him. He signed longer term as well. To me, Kubalik is the ideal guy to move. And really at this point, I think they need to move him for a defenseman and then kind of bolster your defensive depth. The problem is Chabot hasn't been good this year. He's trying to play on his weak side. It's not working out. I think they need another right-handed D. They've got Zub, who's been good. Zub gets hurt, and look what happens. You get to change up all your pairs, and it falls apart. That's how much of a stabilizer and how important he is. Now, one player shouldn't be that big a deal to the team, but it is. It's just that simple. And you get Hamonic as the only other right-handed D, and he's okay, but you need to really limit his usage. And they haven't been able to do that. And he's made more mistakes than he should be because he shouldn't be out there as much. It's just that simple. They need another right-handed defenseman because they have too many guys trying to play on their offsides. And it's possible here. You're looking at 6 weeks for Chabot. Hard to say how long you're looking at for Brannstrom. Now, Zub should be back soon. He's already missed. This will be because he'll miss the game in Pittsburgh tomorrow. That's 4 games. They originally called him day to day. I would think with another 4 days off after that the next home game he should be okay. That at least the hope would be that he would be. So then you're only down 2 defensemen. So I really think that needs to happen, and it needs to happen soon. So we'll see where things go. The Penguins, obviously the team that the Sens are playing tomorrow night, also very much looking to make a few changes, which we've mentioned a few times. And the main candidate that I've been hearing is coming up as possible trade candidate is Pierre-Olivier Joseph. They really were hoping he would take a step this year and really solidify that third pair. Hasn't happened. We've seen some guys get ahead of him already, like Shea, Ludwig. Obviously, Ludwig got hurt right away, but I don't think Dubas has a ton of confidence in Joseph. When a GM comes in, he's not a player that he traded for or drafted, so there's no attachment, there's no sentiment there. I really think Joseph is a guy in Pittsburgh that could be made available in order to kind of help shake things up. We've already heard that Dubas has been scouring the waiver wire, looking for bottom 6 help or looking for a bottom 6 swap with other teams. So they will continue to look for trades. There's no doubt, but Joseph is the main name that I've been hearing. If they're going to do a swap with another team, that he could be the guy that gets done. And could Chris Tanev end up back with Vancouver? It does seem like a real possibility, but it really boils down. We don't know for sure the level of interest from the Canucks, but Rick Dhaliwal, who's a well-connected Canucks reporter, wonders if Tanev could end up back in Vancouver if he doesn't sign an extension with the Flames. He acknowledges there has been some talks about an extension, but at this point nothing is done, and he wonders if they don't get a deal done, if the Flames would try to, or the Canucks, would try to bring him back from the Flames. He was a great partner for Quinn Hughes when he was there before. We know he's a warrior type defenseman, good leader, good defensive defenseman, good block shots. Like, there's lots to like about Tanev. Obviously, Tyler Myers has to go. Tyler Myers is by far enemy number one in Vancouver, making a lot of mistakes. Arguably their worst player this season. He's on an expiring deal too, so he wouldn't be there next year. I've heard some talk about, maybe they should just put Myers on waivers if you can't trade him. And, well, the problem is I'm not sure who's going to eat those minutes is the problem. If they had an easy solution that could slide into his spot, I wouldn't be shocked if they would do that. But at this point, I don't see it happening. Especially while the team is doing okay. If things were going off the rails like it was last year, okay, they might be willing to do something a little bit more drastic. But right now, I don't necessarily see that being the case. So we'll see. But Tanev, Vancouver, if I'm in Vancouver and I'm Jim Rutherford, I'd be all over that. He'd be a great replacement for Tyler Myers. Doesn't mean it could happen by trade this year, because Calgary and Edmonton both have not had good starts to the season. If they became sellers later and they don't have an extension done with Tanev, I'd be trying to get them in Vancouver, just so you have, you can kind of get them integrated before the end of the year, so that you can try to keep them and have an advantage to negotiating a contract for next year and beyond. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but Dollywall wonders if there'd be interest and he'd be a good Myers replacement, and I think he's on to something. But the problem is to do it this year via trade, if the Flames don't sign him and they want to move him later on, is how do you get rid of Myers? That's going to be the tricky part, because they're going to need the space to make it happen. I don't think Calgary would take that on, but you just never know. We'll have to see where things go, but I do expect there to be more further discussions around that. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.